Welcome back to Antique Central. My name's Mark and I buy and sell antiques and vintage on my website. The URL is below and in the description if you'd like to visit it. In this week's video, we're looking at part 2 of the haul I picked up at local pop-up auctions and at an antiques fair. We'll talk about each item one by one and I'll reveal what I paid for them and what I think I can sell them for. If you think I've got my valuations wrong, which trust me, does happen, I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments below. Just keep it polite, I'm only joking. So let's head down to the studio and check out the final 5 items from my latest haul. First up is an unrestored and genuine industrial antique. Here we have an Archibald Kenrick & Sons cast iron glue pot. And I know it's by Kenrick of West Bromwich, as for once it's clearly stamped with the maker's name on the base, AK & Sons. And by the way, if you don't know, West Bromwich is in the traditional Black Country region of Staffordshire in the West Midlands of England. And it's called the Black Country because of all the smoke and pollution that was generated through industrial activity and coal mining in the 19th century. The Black Country was a powerhouse of manufacturing back then, particularly in the really heavy, dirty industries such as mining, casting and forging. And as well as churning out goods for export to the British Empire, I believe they even made the anchor and chain for the ill-fated Titanic in 1912. In fact, the pollution was so bad there is a rumour that back in the day, Queen Victoria, when passing through the Black Country in her train, asked her servants to close the curtains in her carriage so she didn't have to look at the view. And those were her own people forging the future of the UK and her wealth throughout the Industrial Revolution and beyond. Says it all, doesn't it? Anyway, enough of the history lesson, back to the studio. I said earlier this glue pot is unrestored, and by that I mean it hasn't been stripped of its patina and polished back to the base metal for display. In this case, cast iron. In other words, it's retained all of its hard-earned industrial heritage and, in my opinion, its credibility as a historical artefact. But that's just my opinion. If you prefer your metalware polished up and pristine, let me know in the comments below. Nowadays, these glue pots are commonly used as planters for succulents like cacti and other small plants. But back in the day, craftsmen obviously used them to store and heat up glue when required. Glue being a critical component in woodworking, the leather trade and other such industries that use glue on a regular basis. Just looking at it, you can tell straight away that a glue pot's strong cast construction ensures it can easily withstand the heavy daily use it would have got in a workshop or factory. Typically, these small glue pots are comprised of 2 pots, a larger one that can hold water and a smaller pot for the glue that sits inside the larger one. The pot is then hung over a fire or placed over a heat source so the glue can melt and be used safely. And no, in case you're wondering, they don't traditionally have lids. I've actually had other dealers sell them to me on the cheap because they thought the lid was missing. I don't know, maybe they were expecting a lid with a hole in it for a spoon or something. A bit like a sugar bowl maybe. Although this type of small item does still have a market, personally I've seen a downturn in the sale of industrial stock, particularly the larger pieces of metal furniture such as cabinets and shelving, to the extent that I've literally had to give away shelving and racking because it wasn't selling and I needed the space. A few years ago, I could have sold these vintage metal shelves, cabinets and racking units for upwards of £100 each, but it is a great example of how fashions and trends change and how you need to keep your eyes on the game to avoid being left with a surplus of unfashionable and worthless stock. Having said that, it's only my personal experience, specifically in my part of the world, and you may have a completely different experience. Let me know in the comments below. But anyway, back to the glue pot. They do actually sell for decent money, and if I remember correctly, I only paid a couple of pounds plus fees for it as part of a job lot at an auction. And I hope to achieve around £20 to £25 resale value, including shipping to the UK mainland. As I mentioned shipping, I should point out that currently I only ship to the UK due to sky-high postage charges, fees and customer import duties. But if my policy changes, I'll let you know. Anyway, back to the haul. Our seventh item is a curious one and the first of its type I've personally ever come across. It's an unusual wooden-handled magnifying glass, and I believe it to be antique based on its design, the type of materials used, and the patination of the wood. If I had to estimate an age, I'd say it was late 19th, early 20th century, but I have to say it is difficult to accurately date it, and this of course will be reflected in the listing. If you know any more about it, please let me know in the comments below. That would be helpful for when I do actually ever get round to listing it. I'm not sure if it has a wooden handle for any specific purpose, and to me it has a colonial look to it. And by that I mean it's made to be entirely functional, robust for travel, and no nonsense in design. It just looks to me like the type of magnifying glass that an explorer would take on an expedition to some exotic part of the world, or maybe it was used in a dark and sinister Gothic laboratory somewhere. I doubt we'll ever know the answer to that question, will we? Either way, let me know what you think it was used for in the comments below. I'm not exactly sure what the magnification strength of the lens is, but having tested it, it does provide a reasonable amount of magnification, and is therefore, even by today's standards, a practical and functional magnifying glass that could still be used for your stamp or coin collection. I can give you a rough idea of its strength here. As you can see, it does the job for basic reading or for examination purposes. Obviously I'm selling it, so I'm hoping this magnifying glass will appeal to collectors or historians who are looking for that unique and unusual antique style. So given it came in for pennies as part of an auction job lot, I'm hoping to achieve around £20 to £25 on my Antique Central website. And just to be clear, if you're a new viewer, I don't list anything on my website for less than £25, including shipping. It's just a policy I have and stick to, so as not to lower the overall quality of the products I have for sale online. The rest of my stock, valued below £20, goes to the flea market, where I'm quite happy to haggle over the sale price, as long as the buyers are respectful and make sensible or reasonable offers. If you want to check out my website, the URL is at the bottom of the screen and also in the description. Next up, we have a fantastic vintage piece of militaria. In fact, it's a hand-engraved brass tankard, but not just any brass tankard. If you look closely, you can see maps and finely engraved or etched details commemorating the North African campaign during World War II. There's no maker's mark on the base, so I can't tell you who made it, but there's no doubt about its historical heritage and provenance, as you can clearly see here in the inscription. Brass used for the manufacture of this tankard was salvaged from the battlefields of North Africa. If you can't read the inscription on the tankard, I'll cut in a couple of close-up photos to show you the text and battle details, including Tobruk, Alexandria, Cairo, the Mediterranean, and the American landings in Morocco, to mention just a few. So what exactly was the North African campaign? Well, it took place during World War II in North Africa from the 10th of June 1940 to the 13th of May 1943. The North African campaign includes battles fought by the Allies, and the Allies included France, Great Britain and the Commonwealth, and the United States, and they fought in the Libyan and Egyptian deserts, Morocco, Algeria, and in Tunisia. In addition to the ongoing war with Hitler and the Axis powers, including Germany, Italy and Japan, at stake was control of the Suez Canal, a vital lifeline for Britain's colonial empire, and more widely, the valuable oil reserves of the Middle East. So you can clearly see how important this military campaign was. Now, I haven't owned anything like this tankard before, so if you're a militaria collector, let me know if they're commonplace in the comments below, as I'd be genuinely interested to learn more about the provenance of this tankard. If you look carefully, you can see that it was originally silver-plated, but over the last 80 years or so, it's been polished back to its base metal of brass. In my opinion, this rules out trench art, as traditionally pieces of trench art were handmade in the trenches, hence their name, or were shed-built from memorabilia when the soldier returned from the front line. In that respect, I'm not sure your average Tommy would have been silver plating in his back garden. So in my book, this is a factory-made piece of memorabilia, produced just after the end of the war, around 1945 or thereabouts. If you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. Either way, it's definitely a tribute to those who served in Africa and is a fantastic piece of military history commemorating the victories and sacrifices of what was a life-changing event for all the soldiers who served in North Africa during the Second World War. I've seen them listed for as much as £160 in mint silver-plated condition and for as little as £35 when they're polished back to the brass base metal, which is what I have. So I'll be setting my price at the lower end of the scale and leave it up to the buyer as to whether they have it replated or not, as the cost of replacing it myself is prohibitive, especially as I'm here to ultimately sell it and make a profit. It came in a job lot of about 20 tankards that I paid less than £5 for in total. So as an individual purchase, this tankard only cost me a few pennies. And to be honest, I didn't even know I'd got it until I checked through them all when I got the box back to the store. So whatever I get for it is a bonus, and as they say, you can't look a gift horse in the mouth. Having said all that, and given the military significance of the tankard, I think it's disrespectful to offer it for resale before I know more about its history and provenance. So I think I'll seek some advice from a militaria expert before I decide what to do with it. Let me know what you think I should do with it in the comments below. Our last but one item is what I think is a vintage tourist piece. It's a small hand-carved wooden horse, finished with copper inlay and intricate saddlery embellishments. It's difficult to put an age on it, but I'd suggest this vintage piece of folk art most likely dates from around the middle of the 20th century, and based on the style and design originates from India or the Asian continent. And yes, I would call it primitive or rustic despite the very nice copper detailing. You can see from its shape and form that it has an Asian or possibly Middle Eastern provenance, based on the style of carving and the manner of the decoration and engraving. It's typically Indian in my opinion, and like I said earlier, it's most likely to be Anglo-Indian, or in other words, made in India for the British market. If you disagree, let me know in the comments below, as I'm making a general assumption based on previous similar examples I've sold. As usual, prices are literally all over the place, believe it or not, from in excess of £100 to a more realistic £30+. So as ever, it's all down to pricing it sensibly, with making a quick sale always at the forefront of my mind. If I remember correctly, it once again came as part of a job lot at auction, so I wouldn't have paid more than a couple of pounds for it plus fees. Taking all that into account, these hand-carved horses are fairly commonplace, so I'll probably be asking around £40 to £60 on the Antique Central website, including shipping to the UK mainland. I might be pushing my luck a little bit here, but as I said, I've seen similar pieces up for sale in excess of £100, so who knows? Time, of course, will tell. Finally, we have my favourite item, or should I actually say items, from the entire haul. On the face of it, it's a small antique oak money box or collection box, complete with a drawer and its original brass coin slot. But most unusually, it has a working key. I'm not sure if it's the original key, as most boxes of this type lose their keys years ago, so it could well be a marriage of the box with a random antique key that works with the lock. Either way, it's fine by me, as most are sold without a key, which adds value to mine. I suppose this money box could originally have been from a church, or maybe have been used as a charity collection box, but most likely, and based on its small size, it was used as a family money box to save up for the weekly rent or to pay the household bills. Unfortunately, we'll never really know, will we? Unless, of course, it was your box and you recognise it. As a rule, there are plenty of these antique oak money boxes out there in the wild for sale. But what makes it slightly more desirable is, as I already said, it comes with a key, which is what attracted me to it in the first instance. That is, before I checked what was inside it. The clincher on the night was its contents. Can't believe none of the other dealers checked inside the drawer. I'm sure they did, but if they had done, I don't understand why the bidding didn't go that little bit higher. And why do I say that? Well, to keep it brief, inside the box there was a hoard of coins and a medal in addition to the actual box itself that made it worthwhile bidding on, depending of course on how the bidding went and the final hammer price. So, to cut another long story short, I knew from the pre-auction viewing that this little money box contained an assortment of contents I was prepared to bid up to a maximum of £15 for, including auction fees. So let's take a quick look at the contents that made it an extra profitable purchase in addition to the antique money box itself. But before we look at the contents, and for transparency, I paid around £10 plus auction fees for the box and its contents, which, to be honest, I would have been happy to pay even if it had been empty. First up, we have this bronze World War II Burma Star medal. It's missing its ribbon, which does reduce its value, but it's still collectible and could sell for around £5 to £10 to the right medal collector or militaria buyer. The medal features the King's monogram for George VI, set below the crown on the front, or obverse as I call it, with the inscription "The Burma Star" surrounding it, and surprisingly, a completely blank reverse. It doesn't have any name engraved on it, so maybe a militaria expert or medal collector can tell me if this is normal practice or not. Would you expect it to have the name of the serviceman who was awarded this medal inscribed on the back? Let me know in the comments below. And in case you're wondering, it's not worth me buying the ribbon as it would use up all the profit paying for it. So I'll leave that to the buyer, who may be a collector who already has the ribbon but is missing the elusive medal. Who knows? Anyway, back to basics. So what is the Burma Star and who was it awarded to? Well, it was instituted in May 1945 and awarded to British and Commonwealth forces who served in the Burma campaign in the Second World War between the 11th of December 1941 and the 2nd of September 1945. In addition to those fighting in Burma, those soldiers serving in Bengal and Assam in India, and also China, Hong Kong, Malaysia or Sumatra between other dates would also have qualified for the medal. So it was quite a generic medal compared to others issued during the Second World War and wasn't limited to one specific battle or country. And of course, as ever, we thank all of those who took part in the Burma campaign for their dedication, sacrifice and service. Another historical gem hidden amongst the hoard of coins was this George III copper halfpenny, or halfpenny, in what I would call fair to good condition, depending on which side of the coin you are looking at. As you can clearly see, it's corroded on the obverse side of the coin featuring the King's head, and in much better condition on the reverse side featuring Britannia. In fact, I would say this side is in extremely good condition compared to the side bearing the King's head. As we all know, condition, of course, is imperative for coin collectors, but despite the slightly corroded reverse, I think it's still saleable to a new or young collector looking to fill a gap in their collection. That's what I'm hoping anyway. And by the way, if you didn't know, a coin collector is known as a numismatist. Having said all that, dating to 1807 and in this condition, this George III copper halfpenny could potentially sell to the right buyer for around £5 to £10. Quite a bargain, I'd say, for a coin that is 217 years old. And for my American viewers, yes, you're right. George III was on the throne from 1760 until 1820 and was the English king who lost the American War of Independence, or as we call it over here, the Revolutionary War. I'm sure my US-based viewers will enlighten me further in the comments below. The rest of the coins are very common, worn and polished, and I estimate them to be worth no more than a tenner as a job lot. Although, to be fair, I haven't done a detailed check for rare dates yet, but don't worry, I will. And if I do find any valuable collectibles amongst them, I'll let you know, but I'm not holding my breath. So if you take the antique oak money box and its contents as a job lot, there is a potential resale value of at least £50 for a purchase that only cost me approximately £10 plus fees at auction. So I have to be happy with that. A minimum 5x on my original investment, and it's certainly a quicker return on my money compared to putting my tenner in the bank for the next 60 years. Fingers crossed anyway. So there you go. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to support the channel, and if you do subscribe, let me know where in the world you are from, and I'll add you to the subscriber list you can see scrolling up the screen as I speak. Right, that's it. As ever, Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.